How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Got my son's little Pee-wee in. Just doing a bit of maintenance on it. So we're going to go through and drop the oil out of it. The choke cable or enrichener cable that comes into the top of the carburetor keeps coming out. It's not the correct cable that was supplied with the kit, because what happens is when we're pushing the enrichener down and it seats all the way down the bottom like it should, it's actually popping the cable out the top of the carburetor. So might be able to sort of just do a simple fix there of putting a cable tie around that. It'll sit like that. It's where it should be to make this cable work. When it's going all the way down like that, it's popping out the top of the carburetor. So, and then it causes an air leak, and then we don't run right. So we'll be doing that. And if we pop around the other side, just on the exhaust here, where you've got your muffler and comes into your silencer here, just this rubber that came with the exhaust when we bought it has split and broken. So it just leaks exhaust out there. So we'll take that off, get a new rubber, and refit that back on. So first up, what we need to do is pop the seat off, rear fender, just so we can get to the carburetor nicely. All right, so now we've got the seat and rear fender off, we can get into this carburetor and see what the issue is. The enrichener comes down and seats into the carburetor there. As you can see, it comes out. It doesn't stay in there. The cable that was supplied with the carburetor, it's obviously not the right one. And you can see I've just pushed it all the way down, and it just pushes the cable out. So now that that cable's out, our enrichener's not going to work correctly. So I've pushed it back into the hole there, pushed the enrichener all the way down, it just comes out. So it's going to be leaking a fuckload of air through there. It should have a connection on it the same as this, but it doesn't. So what we're going to do is get it all seated in there and just pop a little bit of JB weld on there to just hold that cable in there. It's not going to affect it mechanically or anything like that. And we'll still be able to pull the carburetor apart by taking that screw off in the middle, and the top of the carburetor will still come off. Like I said at the start of the video, this is my son's little bike, so we'll just get it going for him so he can keep on ripping. So what I'm going to do now is just take off the airbox. We'll take that off, it'll give us better access to that cable. And while we've got it apart, we'll pop a new filter in that as well. So just as well, we've taken the airbox off, because I'll jump in front of the camera here with the part. The boot that goes from the airbox to the carburetor is actually torn. So that will be allowing air and dirt to go straight through there, bypassing the filter, making the filter redundant anyway. So we'll order up a new boot and pop it on as we go. So now we've got our airbox off, we've got lots of area to get in here. We're going to be using some JB weld, mixing that up, just putting it just around the top there, just to hold that cable in there to stop it coming out. So that's on there on the top of the cable. We don't need a whole heap. It's only just to just take the pressure off it. So in the future we probably can get that off anyway. Coupled with the cable tie up the top, I think this will solve our issue. Right, so I've just held the cable while that JB weld was set and just pushed this down. Obviously goes down more than that, it bottoms out, and that's our problem. It pushes the cable back out. So what we need to do is stop at the thickness of this cable tie. So I'll pop the cable tie on, it doesn't need to be tight or anything there. It's just going to be used pretty much as a stopper. So that allows us now to push it down. Disengaged. You can pull it up, start the bike, push it down. Now we're not going to have the issue of the cable coming out the top of the carburetor. Right, now we'll pop open this air filter. Overall, it's not too bad. The box is doing its job, keeping the weeds and that out of the motor. That's what you want. I don't want weeds in the motor. It bloody stuff up. Righty, so while we've got it up on the bench, we'll just take this stator cover off, and what we're going to check for is if there's any oil in there, and what that will tell us is if our seal on our crankshaft is leaking or not. So we'll pop that off, make sure it's all still nice and clean in there. So what we want to have a look at, it's a bit hard to see on camera, but with the naked eye you can see that there's no oil or anything like that in there, all fuely stuff in there. So how two-stroke works is your fuel comes through your carburetor and then goes into the bottom end, like your crank, and then gets sprayed up. So the oil in the fuel lubricates your crank that is behind this inside the casing. So we've got no oil or fuel in there, so that just tells us that our seal on our crank is still fine and not leaking. So it's just a good thing to just check. It's 3 screws, it's up on the bench, so might as well just have a quick look at it. So we'll pop that cover back on. So the next thing we'll check while it's up on the bench here, we'll just pop this cover off and make sure there's no dirt in there. We did grease all these not long ago, so I'm not going to pull the whole assembly apart. I'm just going to pop off these screws and make sure it's not filled with dirt. As you can see, it's looking nice and clean in there. Still all nice and greased up. So how the PW50 works, it's not a chain drive, it's a shaft drive. So it comes into here and it's like your diff in there sort of thing. It's got 2 gears that mesh in together. So as you can see, we've previously greased it. Just wanted to make sure there was no dirt and grime and all that sort of shit in there. So we can pop our cover back on. Just make sure the sealing surfaces are nice and clean and there's no little bits of shit on there. Right, so now we're around the other side. We're going to drop the gearbox oil. This takes 300 ml, so I've just got a container here with some measurements on it. Undo this bolt here and drain it out. Just undo the strap and tip her over. We've got the 300 out. We'll just nip up this. You always got to make sure you got your washer on the sump. And make sure the surfaces are nice and clean too when you're putting the bolt back in. You can replace the washer each change, but for this one it was unnecessary. So we'll get some oil. It doesn't have a dipstick, so what it tells you is just to put 300 mils in, so that's what we'll do. Righty, so now it's all drained and ready to go. This is our gear oil that we're going to use. It states that we need 300. So I've got a couple of these containers. So what I've done is just emptied it out, and we can see there's 300 on there. So I'll just empty this container into there now. So that's the 300 ml in there. I don't like how they don't have a dipstick, but it states 300, so that's what we pop in there. Just make sure all your sealing surfaces and O-rings are fine. Just reinstall the filler cap. Right, so we've got the old air box with the torn boot. Just jumped online and needed a new filter as well, so it was just cheaper to buy a complete air box with the boot and the filter. So what we'll do is oil up the filter. We want to oil up this side, so the air is going to come through here, and we want to oil this side because it's going to get sucked through here. We use this foam filter oil. So that's been sprayed. So we've got a mesh part in there, and we pop our filter on. Another thing I like to do is just get a bit of grease and grease around the outside edge of this. So if there is any leaks, we've got our grease there, and that's going to catch anything trying to get into the air box. We're going through the filter anyway, but it's always just a good safe measure. Now we've got that grease. You can grease both sides of the air filter if you like, but the way that this one goes together, this is the only area where dust and that's going to get in. So we'll pop the box together and just wipe off any excess that we've got on the outside. And we'll just go along with our rag, wipe off any excess that's been pushed out. Right, so now we're ready to put our air box on. On the PW50s, they're a bit of a bugger to get in there, but we'll see how we go. Right, as much as a mission as it is, we got it on. I think I might actually convert this later on to just like a little pod filter instead of this big box. It doesn't line up properly 100% with the carburetor. You can see this section here is hitting on that cable that we've had trouble with coming out. So I think the next time it's due for an air filter, we'll take that big box off and pop it oiled up sort of pod filter sort of style on it. We'll just cut back this box a little bit here, just so it clears that cable better and get it all to sit a bit nicer. So we'll pop around to the exhaust side and pop that little rubber on, and then it's ready to pop together. Now we've got our rubber to join the muffler to the silencer. There's the other one split. So we'll pop it on the silencer. Right, so now that's all on, we'll pop the seat and fender back on. We'll take it outside and give it a start. Right, so she's all back together. We'll give it a start now. We'll turn it on, pull the enrichener up. When it starts, let the enrichener stay on for a little bit, and then we'll